Good evening. We gather here tonight to mark a solemn anniversary, to remember lives lost, sacrifices made, and to celebrate the victories, large and small, that gather here tonight. On March 13, 2020, the impending threat of COVID-19 forced Hamilton County to shutter its schools, close its businesses, and enforce stay-at-home orders. Just 2 days later, on March 15th, we learned that our first person in Hamilton County tested positive for the virus. Just 2 days later, we lost our first resident.
A year later, we're surrounded by 400 luminaries, one for each of the Hamilton County residents who have lost their lives to COVID-19. This would have seemed unimaginable just 1 year ago. But tonight, we're reminded of the lost lives and the families left grieving. Over 12,400 families statewide and more than 500,000 nationally who find themselves with one less seat at the dinner table, one less stocking to hang for the holidays, and for one less birthday to celebrate in this new year. It seems few have been unaffected by this virus, whether you had it or whether you've nursed someone through it or whether you've lost someone to it. It cuts deep, very deep to this community.
COVID-19 became quite personal for our Hamilton County family, who all knew and loved Barry McNulty. Barry was our Hamilton County Health Director for our health department. He was also our leader in the fight against COVID-19, and Barry dedicated his life to public health. He was an avid outdoorsman, a family man, and somebody who was a dedicated public servant. Barry had just bought his dream boat and was talking about retirement after 33 years of service with us when COVID stole that dream from him on December the 17th, just 1 week before Christmas. Joining us tonight is Barry's son, Zach McNulty. He's here tonight to pay tribute to his dad and also for all of those that suffered the same fate as his family did.
My dad wore many hats. Professionally, he served Hamilton County since 1987. He served 8 years as a Noblesville City Council member. He was on the Board of Zoning Appeals and the administrator for the Health Department since 1996. At home, he was a husband, he was a brother, a son, a grampy, and a friend. My dad was a fearless dreamer. He loved to make bucket lists, and he actually completed them. He loved to share his dreams and his passions with his family. He taught my brother and I how to fish and hunt. We hiked, we backpacked. He even helped my oldest son catch his first fish last summer. My dad was on the cusp of living that full-time dreamer life, retirement, hand in hand with my mom, living the golden years of their life on their boat, enjoying the grandbabies. My dad tested positive on November the 7th. I assumed that he would have a hard 10 days and then be back to his normal self. I mean, he was a pretty healthy, active guy. He was only 59 years old. He was admitted to the hospital on the 14th, 1 week later, after he tested positive. My dad was on the COVID unit, isolated from his friends and family. It was too exerting for him to talk, so we mostly texted. He spent nearly a month away from us in the intensive care unit. Ultimately, my mom was able to visit him for the last 4 days before he passed. She still has the handwritten conversations from those days together because it was easier for him to write than to speak. The damage to his lungs brought on by the virus ultimately took his life on December 17th. I said goodbye via video chat because I too had tested positive for COVID-19 and was at home quarantined with my family. The irony of my dad, the county health administrator, being taken by the virus that he fought so hard is almost as painful as the loss itself. Today we're here to remember the 400 Hamilton County residents who lost a loved one to the COVID-19 virus. My family personally experienced that loss on December 17th. I was asked to try and relay what my dad would say to our community. I think you would start by saying that every story matters. No one has totally escaped this virus, and it's changed all of our lives. I remember getting a phone call from my dad in January of 2020. The first stories of this mystery virus were starting to float across our media outlets. And my dad told me, I don't know a lot about what's going on, but I can tell you that it's real. Over the next month and a half after that phone call, I remember watching the first cases hit the United States, the empty food shelves, the feelings of uncertainty and isolation. I remember questions like, what about my job? What about my family in the nursing home? How am I supposed to work and keep my kids at home? What if I get the virus? What if someone I love dies from it? I remember walking the aisles of Kroger and watching people collect necessities from their family, casual greetings replaced with skeptical looks. Since those first moments of uncertainty a year ago today, each one of our lives has been forever changed. Then I think my dad would have said, cherish the time that we have with our friends and family. Be intentional about connecting with people. Get outside and enjoy a park. Share a meal with your family. This virus has changed all of our lives, but in many ways it has brought us back onto, in many ways has brought focus back onto what is most important and essential to us. We can see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's time to come together as a community and move forward. Thank you for hearing my family's story.
Thank you, Zach, for sharing your father's story. Good evening. While it's true that this virus has preyed on the elderly, Barry's story proves that no age group has been immune from the pandemic. This virus has taken the lives of countless of others who don't fit neatly into the boxes of those who are considered high risk. We've lost healthcare workers as well, doctors and nurses who risked their own lives to ensure our loved ones came home. And when our loved ones couldn't be saved, these warriors sat with them while they took their last breath. They did this initially without a clear idea of what they were up against, battling an invisible enemy that they knew little, if nothing, about, going into work each and every day when the rest of the world was on lockdown. They did this without seeing their families for days on end, anxious and worried that they might bring home something more than a paycheck. Some even taking the extreme measures of staying in a hotel or sending their children to live somewhere else. They did this at times without proper protective gear, recycling and sterilizing used masks and gowns because there weren't enough to go around. Add to that the emotional guilt of having to turn away family members whose loved ones were dying. We've all experienced monumental challenges this year, but few had to carry the weight like our healthcare workers. From those fresh out of medical school to those who answered the call to come out of retirement, to those like the Marcus family in Carmel, whose adult children signed up as patient care assistants to support their parents, both who are doctors in Hamilton County hospitals. We call them heroes, but they're not superhuman. Their efforts and sacrifices save lives. This pandemic will leave an incredible mark on their psyche. Our hope is that in the year ahead, those medical professionals are allowed time to grieve, time to rest, and time to heal. And tonight, we light the city blue in their honor. Gentlemen, will you do the honors?
Just like healthcare, law enforcement is often a calling. Born out of a want to help others in times of crisis, our police and firefighters are trained to run into harm's way. Day in and day out, they place our lives ahead of their own. During the pandemic, they were called on to treat and transport people gravely ill with COVID, tending to the sick all the while knowing they were placing their lives and the lives of their loved ones in danger. Many became ill themselves, forced to quarantine alone, away from their families, in firehouses, in makeshift beds so as not to infect others. Knowing they were placing additional strain on their station, requiring others to pick up extra shifts, and contributing to further burnout. Our first responders also helped our community weather the pandemic's mental and emotional firestorm. Some responded to calls from people who were simply lonely and looking for someone to talk to. Others had the tough task of responding to an influx in calls for drug overdoses, suicides, domestic violence, and drunk driving. Issues amplified by lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, isolation, and desperation. These brave men and women are sworn to protect and serve, but never could they have imagined a crisis on this magnitude. The very nature of their work is stressful and emotionally taxing, but with all the unknowns and little time to decompress, they too risk falling victim to mental breakdowns. In a profession of fixers, these heroes aren't accustomed to asking for help. But let's remember that outside of the uniform and away from the badge, these are people with jobs and families, just like you and me. They share the same concerns and carry the same burdens. And while they do a great job of looking out for one another, it's important that we look out for them as well, providing them the social and emotional support they need to replenish their minds, bodies, and spirits. Tonight, our first responders line the Noblesville Square. We are joined by the police departments of Arcadia, Cicero, Fishers, Noblesville, and Westfield, as well as the Carmel, Fishers, Jackson Township, Noblesville, Sheridan, Wayne Township, and Westfield Fire Departments. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and Hamilton County Emergency Management teams are also here. As a salute to their sacrifices and an appreciation for all they've given, we ask them at this time to light their lights.
Together we stand, the cities of Carmel, Westfield, Noblesville, and Fishers, the towns of Arcadia, Atlanta, Cicero, and Sheridan, united as one Hamilton County. While we look forward to a year filled with great promise, we cannot and we must not forget a year that gave us such fear, uncertainty, and pain. Reverend Dr. Shelley Wood, senior pastor at Orchard Park Presbyterian Church and a member of the Carmel Interfaith Alliance, is here tonight to provide a moment of remembrance.
Good evening. Scripture assures us we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. We know something about suffering. We know more about it today than we did a year ago. We are more than just aware of suffering or know of someone who has suffered. All of us have suffered in some way. We have lost friends and parents, neighbors and siblings, co-workers and grandparents. We have lost the memories we thought we would have. Plays and concerts, baseball games and birthday parties, graduations and reunions. We have experienced loneliness and isolation in ways we never had before. We have feared becoming sick. We have battled illness. We have endured long stays in the hospital. And we have been given the unwanted title of being a long hauler. Yes, we know something about suffering. And that suffering has produced perseverance. And persevered we have. We have learned how to meet virtually and be creative in staying connected. We have thought of new ways to celebrate. We have held vigil. We have persevered by adapting and finding a way to say, I love you, I am with you, you are not alone. We have adapted to new ways of learning, eating, playing, serving, and living. And this perseverance has taught us something of character. We discovered that heroes are the ones in the grocery stores and stocking shelves. They are the teachers engaging with children and teaching in new ways. They are the parents who've juggled working, teaching, and parenting. They are the ambulance drivers, the police officers, and the firefighters who have served as first responders and put their lives at risk for others. They are the healthcare workers, the doctors and nurses, the aides and the administrators, the chaplains and the physician assistants who covered themselves with PPE every day and tested thousands of people in parking lots and emergency rooms, who provided oxygen and held up iPhones so people could tell their loved ones goodbye. They have sat in rooms as generation after generation have come in to receive a shot of hope. It is the character of these individuals that give each of us hope. And it is in this light of hope where we stand today. Hope for family trips and baseball games. Hope for concerts and picnics. Hope for hugs from grandparents and coffee with friends. Hope for job security and in-person class. Hope for good health and quiet ICUs. Keep hoping. Keep hoping. Keep hoping. My hope and prayer for you this evening as we mark history and look back is that we also can look forward, recognizing that our suffering, our grieving has produced perseverance. And that perseverance has given us great character. And our character, our common humanity, that has brought us the assurance of hope. And hope remains. So enter each day with a generous heart. Serve the call of courage and love until we see their beautiful faces again. And in the land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose them again. God bless you and keep you.
Thank you, Pastor. Very hopeful words. Allow me, if you will, to build on a couple of words, beginning with hope. We stand here tonight filled with hope. Hope for better health, happier outcomes. Second word is grateful. To the Hamilton County businesses who kept their doors open and found ways to still serve our community during these difficult times. Grateful to the countless volunteers who provided food to frontline workers, feeding their bodies, replenishing their souls. Grateful to the Hamilton County nonprofits who saw it that our residents had food, shelter, and mental health counseling. We're grateful to the teachers who kept our kids going through these hard times. Grocery store workers who kept the shelves stocked with what they could get their hands on. The postal workers who kept the mail coming. We're grateful to the scientists who advanced medicine and created medications and vaccines that will save countless lives in an unprecedented haste. We're grateful to the good men and women now working the front lines to ensure that these vaccines are making it into the arms of every Hamilton County resident. And we're doing a great job here in Hamilton County of just that. This past year has certainly tested our resolve. It stretched our resources. But as Pastor Wood reminded us, it has also built character and taught us an invaluable lesson about perseverance. Our generation, our younger generations have not ever had to face this kind of adversity, whether it be war, economic problems. This has been a test. And now we stand here on the cusp of herd immunity and the reopening of our community, and we're ready to throw open our doors to business, schools, and life as we remember it a little over a year ago. We're ready to embrace a new normal and one another, I hope. The next few months will offer promise that we couldn't even imagine as we entered this a year ago. I truly believe that we will emerge stronger, healthier, more united, and perhaps more grateful for all that we still have despite what we have lost. Tammy, I want to thank you for putting this all together this evening. Thank you, all of Hamilton County, and good night.